Hi everyone, welcome back to the Main Night Podcast, where we are ranking every film ever made.
Hi Dave.
This week is Casino, a 1995 film exploring the organized crime sphere entering the Las Vegas gambling scene. As always, we will rate it out of 10 just based on how much we enjoyed this film. We're going to chat for 10 minutes, and then we're going to each present a change that we have brought and finish up with a ranking the film out of 10 in 7 further categories, trying to be as objective as we can. It's me first today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is usually a surprise, but due to 5 to 10 minutes of technical difficulties, we'll count in anyway for routine's sake. It's me first.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't even know if I can remember what I landed on.
I know what you got.
All right, let me guess it. Let me guess what my score is. Count me in. Right, ready?
3, 2, 1.
7.6.
That's what I remember
Yes.
you getting. Yeah. And I was 6.4.
Right, which you said it's not low.
No, let's clarify. For me, 6.5 is my definition of a film that I enjoy, net good.
Yeah.
Net enjoyment positive.
And you were 6.6.
So I was just 6.4.
6.4. So
I was just below.
Okay.
I was umming and ahhing because it's clearly a good film.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is the gut reaction.
Yeah.
And I can't hand on heart say that I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It was just below
Yeah.
that for me. So it was a 6.4.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing as well was what you were saying about the exposition was just tiring.
I'll remake the points for the benefit of people who have not listened, which is everyone.
I listened.
You listened. Apologies. You'll have to just breeze through this. So I don't think I like Martin Scorsese's films, unfortunately. The ones that I have watched then, so we rattled them off, didn't we? The Departed, Goodfellas,
Wolf of Wall Street.
Casino. Maybe some others, but those are the ones that came to mind. So loves his exposition. And this film, more than any other, it felt like he was talking us through like the whole film to the point where I felt as a storytelling technique, it was so much of tell, don't show.
Yeah.
That I found it irritating.
Massively.
And you had this diverse, sprawling list of characters that were all basically run-of-the-mill, arbitrary mob figures where you didn't find any of them they went into any detail on.
Yeah.
You know, maybe someone else would have at least given like interesting stories around each different person, even just in reference. So you got a bit more flavour for their character.
A bit of depth, a bit behind who
Yeah, just
they
an
were
interesting story about this guy.
Okay.
You know, he's called Bobby Knuckles because he's only got knuckles and his name's Robert.
Yeah,
You know?
would have been easy to do with all the freaking expositions.
Think about it. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah,
By the way,
Bobby Knuckles.
Bobby Knuckles.
Martin, if you're listening, it's not yours for your next film. That's Fred's.
So the exposition I didn't like. I also mentioned that the characters just didn't interest me that much. Like considering you've got the three, you've got the Jewish mob. Well, not mob boss, but the Jewish business guy who's a
tied to crime a bit.
Tied to crime. He's an incredible gambler who ends up running a casino just because of his meticulous nature.
Yeah.
That should be really interesting. And maybe he was the most interesting.
Definitely.
But still, part of it was his choices and also I felt like just the direction his character went on, the journey.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agreed with it. Or it didn't make sense to me. It didn't fill me with empathy.
Right.
I don't want to say that. It's not just because characters don't need to be empathetic, but the way he turned from being, the friend of Nikki to then being a, distant, cold, but also fame hungry. Mm-hmm. I just started to get like distance from the direction his character was going. I wasn't invested in the character arc.
Yeah.
And part of that was because of the exposition. Part of it was because of his relationship with Ginger, who another character that I didn't really care for, and a performance that I didn't rate that much either.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, you've got Robert De Niro, who is obviously excellent, but it's not like I think this is one of his better or best performances.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci is doing a Joe Pesci, and as is the case with the other Scorsese films, you feel like once you've seen it once, that's the gimmick.
With Joe Pesci, massively.
But I'd even extend that to
Scorsese
films, or certainly Scorsese mob films. Like they're all so long, they're so exposition heavy. What is it about them that is interesting and unique? So I guess the way he tells the story, the real life events and the way he sticks to the realism of the time, actually bringing in real people who are involved and casting them, all of that lends itself to some element of authenticity. But if I am only watching it for the authenticity, then once I've watched one of them, I'm not as interested in the others. And this was a case of just from the off, I was like, I'm not really enjoying this. I'm not invested in the characters. There's a litany of other characters who is not done enough for me to be invested in. Performances aren't that great. The story is, dime a dozen mob story. What is unique here for me? What am I really enjoying? Outside of being the buff of most mob films are good enough to at least get in the sixes. That's what landed me at that score.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's fair enough on the character front. I would say one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was the direction that he took, specifically Ace and Nikki's relationship, because I liked the way that there was that conflict, that tension between Ace kind of wants to go legit. Almost, he wants to become this massive legit businessman, and Nikki it almost feels like he wants to just be in crime, even if a better opportunity comes up, not in crime. It's almost ruled out for him that it's not like an illegal activity for him. So I liked that. I gotta say, I agree on the performances. I know before this episode, I was like, I need to caveat this. I've only seen Robert De Niro in this and Heat. Okay. And in both of them, right, he has this love interest where he plays the exact same role in that relationship, and it's just so fucking boring. It's like, my life is just, it's too exciting for you. And I can't, I don't know if I can be, I can be held down by a woman, but I'm so in love with this particular woman. But then I'm also like, I'm too stoic to show any of that. And so it just kind of ends up being like, well, why is this even fucking here? What are we doing? So
it's an interesting point. Yeah. I felt in Heat, I felt there was differences in his relationships here, his relationship to Ginger here compared to Heat.
Yeah.
Namely that where I agree with you is both decisions to get with those women seemed very out of character for the character that we supposedly knew.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
I suppose it's not performance.
But in terms of, I wouldn't say that Ace's character thought that he was, or he didn't explicitly think that he was better than Ginger. He did love her, and he was trying to win her to his side. But whereas in the case of the Heat character, you do feel like
there was definitely a bit of that in Heat. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think it's more because you're right. The character didn't directly express like I am. In fact, he supposedly he adored her, which again, like you said a minute ago, it just seems so strange for the character to behave the way he did towards Ginger when it just seemed so unlike him to do anything like that. But it was more the way that there's just something about the way that Robert De Niro played the romantic role in both those films that I just didn't like. I just don't enjoy watching it. I'm like,
him
it's
do
just
romance.
I need to watch something with him doing romance properly because those two just didn't do it for me. And then you've got Ginger. I do think that people will blow smoke up the ass of anybody who does a performance where effectively it's a marriage where they're screaming at each other. Like people lap that shit up. And I just think that's got to be the easiest shit in the world to act. That's got to be so easy because every single one of us has lost our shit at somebody at one point in our life. It's so fucking easy to do.
It's real, extreme reaction acting is, always critically lauded, or lauded by the audience because you can really see the efforts that they're going to, which is fair enough. Really well done extreme reactions, great horror movie acting is so rare. When it's really well done,
terror,
as is real terror. I saw a short of Sydney Sweeney acting in Euphoria. It wasn't horror, but it was so visceral. She was so good. I was like,
really?
Wow. I really was surprised. She was reacting to something I think her mum was in the show talking about her sleeping with her friend's boyfriend, and like she just had this amazing reaction. And with the Sharon Stone one, I feel like you need a real high bar for me to be impressed by extreme reactions, like because everyone wants to do it, and it's basically just shouting to mask how realistic the performances really are. Some people are great. Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm not the biggest fan of him as an actor because I'd never really understood why people thought that he was deserving of an Oscar just for being in enough good movies. But one thing I will never take away from him is he is incredible when it comes to extreme emotions.
Right.
Like when it gets to anger and blowing his lid off, all of that. He does a really, it's something that he's really great at. To come back to Casino, considering Sharon Stone's performance is lauded, and we mentioned she was Oscar nominated for this, I've heard other podcasts discuss her as being a shoo-in that she should have won. I can't even recall what she lost to or who she lost to. But what I will say is I don't see it myself. I don't see what made this so great as a performance.
Apart from the extreme reaction thing that just seems to get people's attention.
It's the same thing with
it's the same thing with people who play people abusing drugs. And it's like really just like mess up their hair and they slump around a lot and everyone's like, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, is it though really? Like, is it really that impressive? I think there's nothing like it feels like acting to me. When I watch people doing that, it feels like acting. And that's not for what I like in a performance. Sure. You know, part of the reason why De Niro is so good at the non-romance bits for me is that it doesn't really feel like acting to me. When he's playing the mobster, it does feel like he is just that character. And so like the performances weren't bad. Pesci does what Pesci does. Yeah. You know, he does it amazingly, but like fucking it's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like you can do a backflip, well done. Like we saw you do it the last 10 parties. Like we get the idea, mate. Like go find something else to do. And then you've got Sharon Stone, who is like, it's just an extreme thing. Like I didn't see anything that blew me away. And then De Niro was cool as fuck as a mobster, but I just thought like as a husband, performance wise specifically, it was just a bit fucking
It just didn't suit him
to
be in love with it out of nowhere. And just to round off on my thoughts on it, run of the mill mob film could have chosen from one of many. So it didn't do enough for me to think that is a good one of that period or even in the history of mob cinema. And once you've seen some of those people putting in performance similar, it doesn't help that you've seen those and now you're watching another one. But what I will say, and I am interested just for a couple of minutes to hear your thoughts on why you actually gave it a 7.6. There, from my perspective, the positives, because there are definitely positives. Obviously, there are great set pieces. There are scenes which, it comes with the territory of that genre, but are really good. Yeah, I think 100%. That the whole ending is pretty good. The way, spoilers, but when everyone starts getting fucking chinned off, is good. It almost really accelerates right at the end. From your perspective, then 7.6 is pretty good. Yeah,
it got a big buff when I found out when I came to realize just how much of it was true to life. Okay. To me, that really does. It makes a story feel more special because it's like, wow, like I don't know how much you've seen about this, but a lot of that shit happened, like a lot of it. And so I was like, that does make it a lot cooler movie to me. Like, I mean, I talked about performances a lot earlier because we were talking about them and I was talking about exposition because we were talking about them. But for me, exposition comes under this. For me, a film is nothing more than a story for me. There's nothing more important to me than a story. And I think, the exposition is a bad element of that story, but I really liked the way that it effectively was the mob moving into 70s Vegas and just like watch the wheels fucking spin off. Like it was awesome. It was so cool to watch. And the way that he set up the conflicts and all that, like I enjoyed the story personally. And I get what you mean about how like for a film to be enjoyable, you want there to be at least one character where you kind of feel a sense of like, I'm really rooting for you. Yeah. and it was missing that. But I think that what it got for trading that off was the very complicated relationship between specifically Nikki and Ace, because I feel like Ace was the one where it should have been. I want to really root for you, and most films do a better job of making you root for the protagonist than Casino did. But what it meant was Ace and Nikki had this really interesting relationship that was just like it was a powder keg. It was just ready to go.
Yeah.
So there were a handful of like little bits like that. The setting, you know, I mean, I know I've just said the story's so important, but like the outfits, the sunglasses, like I was just grinning away looking at just like the whole, like, what cooler setting than 70s Vegas. Like, that's a good thing for a movie for me. You know, you said mob movies get buffs. This is part of the reason why. Like, they're always in fucking awesome scenarios.
They're definitely higher than the average, aren't they?
Yeah, like just 70s Vegas, like crime moving in. Like, you can't get that wrong. Sure. Well, I mean, he did a pretty good job. That exposition was just horrendous. But yeah, so it's like top tier performances. It felt very wrong to me to give that lower than a 7, because it was like, we're holding them up against the names.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, very much in the gut reaction for me. I wanted to be clear that just purely on how I enjoyed the film, it didn't do it for me. But when we actually go into the ranking, I will expect it to be higher than in the 6s.
Yeah, it was a bit too long as well.
Yeah. Way too long. All right.
Should we move on to our
Let's
what if
move
section?
on.
All right, Fred, you go first.
Welcome back to Mate Night. Today we're diving into a what if scenario for Casino. What is scenario?
Casino.
Where we imagine how Casino might have turned out if Martin Scorsese hadn't directed it.
So there's just nothing happens.
Big change this week.
Nobody directed. It's just a script and a bunch of actors.
Changes. What if Casino didn't happen?
They all performed it.
So on our what if segments, we like to take a small change, a small insignificant change.
Detail.
Like, what if there was no director for this film? And see what would have happened. So this week, we're going to explore what would happen if 3 other iconic directors took the reins on Casino. But this isn't just speculation, Jambo. I'm going to present you with 3 distinct visions. I say distinct, it's not that long, but they are visions, complete with alternate titles. And then you, Jambo, get to decide which version you'd want to see. But before we get started, if you enjoy this segment or any of the segments that we do, please hit that like button and even subscribe. So, why this change? We spoke about this in the long form, but to bring any listeners up to speed, let's talk about why I'd consider swapping out Scorsese. Sacrilege, I know, because it's a Scorsese film, but I'm not too big a fan of old Marty boy. So while Casino has its merits, it is certainly not without its flaws. For me, the film's nearly 3-hour length felt very excessive, and particularly because there was such a reliance on the narration to deliver exposition, which it felt like was just talking you through the whole film. Yeah. Very tell not show. Personally, I'd rather if the director had decided to leave things up to interpretation or been a bit smarter around how they led the audience down the actual story they were taking.
Maybe a little more nuanced.
Just something other than being talked at for so long.
Read me a story.
So Scorsese often resorts to telling us through voiceover what's going to happen rather than showing. And I feel that this is a bit of a storytelling shortcut. Also, as a smaller gripe, the non-linear narrative. Now, we've had so many non-linear films that we've done, so I'm not going to dock it for that. But specifically in this case, the non-linearism was just for the car explosion at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which I felt came across as a bit of a cheap bait and switch.
I was going to say corny.
Considering he didn't actually die from that. So rather than that, or an engaging plot device, maybe scrap that. Also, there were so many different mob characters which weren't fleshed out at all. They were just a rotating rogues gallery of mob characters with no depth whatsoever. You feel like if you're going to introduce all of these, maybe you could do it in a way where it's a bit more fun or interesting or at least memorable, because I didn't remember the names of any of the mob characters after this.
No, I don't think I did either. Ace.
There you go. Oh, I mean, I remember the main characters.
Yeah, it's getting.
So I felt the film doesn't do enough to develop them, leaving me less invested in their fates. Like, for instance, the guy who ends up killing Nicky,
Yeah.
he was his best mate and he was lying to the other mob. No, not best mates, but he was really in tandem with him.
Yeah.
And then he was suddenly very anti him. I know Nicky had kind of fucked him over a bit, but didn't you think by the end it was almost way out of left field that he was so against Nicky? Things like that. Maybe we can make this a bit more earned and justified.
It was a real story, and that guy really did it. But Scorsese should have explained what the hell was going on there. Like, it felt so, especially after 3 hours. How have they not managed to explain why Nicky's been betrayed by his closest advisor?
Yeah, exactly that. So
With such venom as well.
that was like one of the key points I wanted to make. You hit on the head is that we've literally sat through 3 hours of this. How can we not know the names of some of the characters or a bit more of the backstory on them? Like, you had the time. If you're going to take that much of our time, don't just talk to us. All right.
And if you tell, don't show, you can just just tell us why you did it. At
bloody
least
tell us who they are.
If you're willing to just tell us everything, tell us why the fuck this stuff's happening.
Just tell us, Marty. So, obviously there were things he did well. I enjoyed the humour of it, the memorable score / soundtrack in this case, dynamic visual storytelling in some cases.
Absolutely.
I mean, he is a great director, obviously. And of course it was character driven. So these are some points that I wanted to retain in my selection of the different directors that we're going to look at. But that is effectively the change that we're going to look at today.
Outstanding.
What are your thoughts, Jambo?
I'm quite excited to hear who you're coming out with. I've got some things cooking in the back of my mind, but
I went with, big names. I'm going to give you the director, give you a title as well, some of their films.
Where's Ball?
Yep.
They're all hairy.
Funny. Casino of the Apes.
Casino.
Caesar's Palace.
Oh,
quality.
Well, that's a missed opportunity.
What are you doing, Wes? What are you doing? So, number one, I reckon this may be the most obvious choice given the things I liked and the things I didn't like. So, we have The House Always Wins, the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
Quentin Tarantino, known for films such as Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, and Kill Bill. In The House Always Wins, Tarantino's signature style would take center stage. Imagine John Travolta as Ace, Harvey Keitel as Nicky, and Uma Thurman as Ginger. In this case, by the way, I wanted to actually replace Scorsese as it happened, just for the Tarantino one, because I thought, okay, who's some good cast? And Tarantino was around that time. He could have, let's say, Scorsese didn't get the rights to the script for some reason. Tarantino got it, and he decided to reimagine it at that time, what might have looked like.
Right, okay.
You'd still be able to have John Travolta in there.
Yeah.
I think John Travolta might have... I love Robert De Niro, but I think he might have done a better job. We're both quite big Travolta fans. Harvey Keitel, do you know who that is? It's the one who plays Winston Wolfe in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, okay.
So still quite diminutive, still quite aggressive, maybe a bit less...
But a bit cooler.
Maybe a bit cooler than Joe Pesci, and not quite 5'3". Uma Thurman as Ginger. He was kind of always putting Uma Thurman in things, wasn't he? So Tarantino would bring his love for non-linear storytelling. And now I'm thinking, if you are going to do non-linear, in for a penny, in for a pound, don't just do a silly bait and switch at the start and end. Let's actually go all over the place. So non-linear storytelling with his own twist. Instead of merely following the events as they happened, he might rewrite history entirely, like he loves to do. Ooh. So you could see this happening in a load of different ways. Maybe some of the characters survive that wouldn't have. Maybe Nicky...
Probably not.
Maybe Nicky kills the people who kill his brother in that scene. He turns the table.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe it becomes a part 2. As a
Oh.
with a revenge plot with Nicky, perhaps.
Tarantino would kill Nicky.
He'd
Always the
probably
ones
kill
that you
someone.
want to die do end up dying.
But you're looking at maybe different deaths. I mean, I liked the ending of Casino, so maybe you don't change that. But
Maybe.
certainly it's going to be good for the exposition because
Hell yeah.
we actually have interesting, funny dialogue will be how we learn about what's going on. And you can have different setups and different scenes. We'd probably get a bit more of a richer dynamic between Nicky and Sam, like their conversations. They could be talking a bit more about their backstory, how they know each other, why are they friends, anything like that. You'd be able to set those scenes in the Tarantino-esque vibe. So picture Ace and Nicky in a tense, loaded conversation in a back room of a smoky casino, revealing their schemes and tensions with each biting line. You could see it. You could see how Tarantino would execute something like that.
Oh yeah.
And also, he would be great for the soundtrack.
I was just about to say
soundtrack would be
100%.
perfect. 70s, that's really, he's a child of that era as well. So you feel like the authenticity that you liked, he'd be able to bring that as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, anything rock, obscure tracks that make every scene more vibrant and memorable. Tarantino's Casino wouldn't just be a mob story, but it would be a stylized, high-energy experience that's as much about the characters' witty exchanges as it is about the action. And given the behemoth that Casino was, I feel like Tarantino could take a 3-hour film, chop up the narrative or chop up the chronology a bit, make it feel a bit fresher. Like I ended up watching this in 3 sittings and I thought, wow, if I had to watch this in one, I would have struggled. Did you watch it all in one?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah. How did you find that?
Well, I think any film is going to be more enjoyable if you watch it in one.
No, I'm glad I didn't.
But no, it went on forever. So yeah, I agree.
So
I agree.
He's our first setup.
Yeah. I like the new name. Remind me that the house always wins.
The house always wins.
A quote that I'm sure they said in the film. No, right? I feel like
maybe. It's a phrase, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it's a good title though. I like that. It's very Tarantino.
The Jew, the Italian, and the Job.
Hang on. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Ooh.
Is that who you?
That's not. It's not. It doesn't matter. It's not him. A Guy Ritchie flick.
Oh,
Notable film: Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, The Gentleman. The Jew, the Italian, and the Job would be Guy Ritchie's take on the Las Vegas underworld. Maybe adding a bit of British flair, but obviously he does have to keep characters American.
Yeah.
So it might be a bit more of an ambitious attempt for him. And in my imagining, I actually have him coming off the back of. I say this, but the casting that I chose was maybe a bit all over the place. But I have him coming off the back of Snatch. You know, so he's in that zone, but now he's going to attempt an American mob
still
film.
Very,
so he's still fresh. He's still like an interesting new director who's really taking everything on. But he does have. I mean, I had Matthew McConaughey at his age, so maybe a bit early for that. But whatever. Time doesn't matter. Jason Statham as Nicky, but he's doing an accent. I feel like he had to have Jason Statham in.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him try an American.
I'm not sure I can see him playing Nicky though. It's like, no.
I'm going to put you in the ground.
Yeah. Nicky's like,
you're not careful. I'm going to put you in the ground. And Michelle Dockery, who worked with Ritchie in The Gentleman as Ginger. Ritchie's version would be heavy on the action, as you can expect, with each major character getting their own backstory, which he is great at fleshing out with interesting stories. The narration would be witty, fast-paced, similar sort of style to Tarantino, but a bit more. It's usually just a British Tarantino, isn't he? But one thing that I will say that Ritchie sets himself apart with is a diverse set of characters within a space. So like, East End London, he could have a massive eclectic cast of characters. Yeah. And he does a great job of giving them their own limelight, usually through storytelling. So he'll have one character talk to another about another character in the guise of some interesting story. And that story would tell you all you need to know about that character. And you remember the names of those characters. You remember where they came from, what they do. So each mob character hence would be more fleshed out, making the film feel less bloated and more engaging. Dialogue would be snappy and full of banter. The humour we may identify a bit more with as Brits. And the soundtrack would be similar in terms of, some real rock classics and good vibe bangers, but maybe a bit of a mix of British tracks as well. So, Richie's Casino, stylish, action-packed, the stakes are high, and the characters are as colourful as the dialogue.
I feel like just post Snatch as well, it might end up being a little grittier than Scorsese's Casino.
I think that he may deliver better on the humour, which I know some elements Scorsese obviously tried, but Guy Ritchie's films are like funny, genuinely funny. So it would be it'd be a bit more of a light-hearted, but maybe more bloody, but more light-hearted.
Yeah, that's it. It can be both, can't it? And I think that Ritchie post Snatch is like much grittier than Casino was, I think.
So, final film then, Red Roulette, a film by, I don't think you'll get this, David Fincher.
God damn it.
Oh,
right, okay, go on.
Notable films, Fight Club, Seven, Gone Girl. So a bit of a darker take on this one. Wanted to see how someone who's a bit more dramatic and tense would have looked at it. So in Fincher's Red Roulette, the atmosphere would be dark, intense, and psychologically charged. So the psychological interplay that he has between the characters, Fincher would really heighten that with tense, gripping scenes that would really showcase the psychological disposition of each character, rather than maybe make them a bit caricaturish and cartoonish, which sometimes can happen in Scorsese's version. I've gone for Ben Affleck as Ace and Edward Norton as Nicky. I feel like Edward Norton has that intense craziness. Although he isn't short, Nicky is supposed to be quite short, but Norton is against Ben Affleck, who's massive. So maybe you could just make it look like he's shorter than he is.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that. Or maybe get Tom Cruise, actually. Tom Cruise, wow. And I've gone with Rosamund Pike as Ginger. So Fincher would strip the story down to its core, focusing intensely on the psychological dynamics between the characters. There may be a tense scene that no doubt you can imagine where Ace is plagued by paranoia and obsession and meticulously monitors every movement in the casino, the camera lingering on his strained expression as the tension builds. This film wouldn't be about fast-paced action, but rather a slow burn, an exploration of trust, betrayal, and the human psyche under pressure. And you'd still get the cathartic moments of death, of mob violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of that you could interplay with real tenseness in the scenes between the characters. And with 3 hours, you got time to do that. Other identifiers of Fincher work, so it'd be a dark color palette, muted tones. So maybe that wouldn't work as well with the 70s Vegas approach.
I think it could.
It's something I'd like to see how he would go about that. But that's the only thing that I could clearly see as a demerit against him. But he still uses shadows and lighting to create a visually striking film. That's typically what he's able to do. So it can feel both of its time and timeless. The soundtrack, again, would be a breakaway from the others that we've looked at. It'd be more eerie, more industrial, and contributing to the overall sense of dread that permeates the film. In Fincher's hands, Casino would be a psychological thriller more than a crime drama. Very different film. So, Jambo, which of these versions would you have wanted to see?
David Fincher. Oh,
Really?
sorry. Go on.
That's not interesting. David Fincher. Yeah.
I actually think that the story needed a darker direction. Like in terms of the way it was presented. The story itself is quite a dark story. And I actually think that when you were laying it out to me, especially once you started explaining about how he would present it visually, and also about the, I said one of my favorite things about the story was the relationship between Nicky and Ace. You were talking about how you could really get into their heads with a Fincher one. That would enhance that thing that I liked so much massively. Yeah. Then I'd probably say Tarantino. And then I'd say Ritchie.
Yeah, Ritchie's a bit of a rogue thought. I actually added Ritchie specifically for the storytelling about the cast of characters.
I like that.
He would bring them out well.
To be honest with you, all three of them sound better.
But what did you think? Do you like the sound of Tarantino, of Guy Ritchie, of David Fincher? Do you prefer Martin Scorsese? Are you uncultured?
Anyone we haven't thought of yet?
Yeah, more likely have you thought of someone better than the ones that I came up with. If you have and want to share with us, please feel free to comment below. If you did like this, please feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. It's been Mate.
Thanks so much. That was fucking awesome, that, man. I got some good news for you. You may have overrun a little, but I'm totally unprepared. So mine's going to be 4 minutes.
Just blast through a 4-minute
introduction that I've written and just see where it takes us. In all seriousness, I've kind of got like, I've got the bones of a skeleton, but just like without the legs. So it's like, we'll just...
Right. So we'll have to...
lot of improv.
We'll run.
Lot of improv.
We'll run for it.
Take a note of the time so we don't overrun.
All right. 5 minutes.
Right. I got a hook ready.
Okay.
I'm just going to shoot a question straight at you. Okay. Right. And you're just going to guess. Don't
The
deliberate.
answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ace Rothstein trusts Ginger with $2 million of his money in the early 1970s. How much is that worth today?
10 million.
Oh, not bad. $14 million.
Oh, wow.
At Mate Night, we have to come up with a change for every movie we review. I'm going to suggest that Casino would be a better film if we just removed anything to do with Ginger.
Ah.
The two of them were just infuriating to watch.
Right.
And the truth is, I'm pretty sure she wasn't even really necessary for the plot.
Okay, go on. Tell me why.
Okay, I actually wanted to start with what I liked about the movie.
Go on, tell me what you liked.
Because it's a very, very good movie.
Sure.
It wasn't our cup of tea, it was especially yours, but it had a top tier cast.
Yep.
Right? It was a very, very cool setting. It had a great soundtrack. It had a lot of things going for it. I loved the relationship between the conflict between Ace and Nikki, best friends, gangsters. One wants to go legit, one wants to go. One's got like ambitions within the crime world that end up making all the wheels spin off. It's crazy. It's awesome. Robert De Niro, really, really good as a gangster. Joe Pesci, obviously, is just Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci.
Right. It's a good movie, right? Okay. But there were some things that I was a bit on the fence about.
Hit me.
Okay. The exposition
Oh, man.
was kind of hard work.
Why don't you tell me about it?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about this?
There was quite, but I won't linger on that because those were kind of, I wanted to just balance it out. Now, here's the thing that I didn't like very much. The relationship between Ace and his wife, Ginger. He trusts her with $14 million.
Right.
He talks about trust nonstop.
Yeah.
Okay? About how important trust is. He marries her after barely knowing her. Mm-hmm. She repeatedly demonstrates that he has no reason to trust her whatsoever. Yep. She tells him not to trust her. And we have to sit through this fucking car crash of a relationship.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is the whole plot about crime moving into Vegas. Really cool, right? And then there's the plot with the relationship between Ace and Nikki. And then it's like, oh no, Nikki slept with Ginger. How's this going to go? I'll tell you how it goes. It just kind of doesn't really turn into anything.
They're just like, all right.
And I was just thinking like, well, hang on a minute. If we take that out, we've got a 3-hour movie, right?
Jesus.
We've got a 3-hour movie. We've got a character which is completely fucking pointless to the actual plot. And I tell you what I think they were doing was for some reason, this blows my mind. People don't seem to think that a gangster movie is enough on its own and it needs romance to add the depth. Remove her altogether.
Okay.
I think that you have a 90 to 120 minute belter of a gangster film that you could sit through start to finish, right? And just enjoy, okay?
You think that it would shave off an hour and a half?
I think it would shave off. Well, it was 2 hours, like 45.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it would shave off a good hour at least.
So, as you know, this is based on a real story. Mm-hmm. So,
I've prepared something for that, Freddie.
Go on.
Okay. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, but it's a real story, Jambo. Well, I'm sorry, but just how they left out every time he went for a dump, you don't have to include everything. It's not a fucking documentary.
Yeah, okay, all right. Fair enough. Yeah,
it didn't help the narrative.
Versus...
It didn't help the story, okay? We cut out loads of stuff
and
real stories.
And you may have seen that one thing that is far from corroborated is the fact that Nikki, I can't remember what their real names are, but Nikki and Ginger, their real life counterparts, it's not known that they actually did get together.
Is that right?
That's like a
So
artistic
that's
liberty that was added.
It went nowhere.
So it's not that they definitely didn't. It's like they definitely didn't do.
Yeah.
It's either or. It's a grey area, but I don't think that anyone has ever said
that was fabricated for the movie.
Yeah, to add an element of tension.
So if that's fabricated and he really, really, really wanted it in there, why did he not have an extra little bit just to round off the only thing that this woman brings to the plot?
They add it in for what purpose?
It's to build that tension between Nikki and Ace, right? Because they've got the meeting in the desert and they've got like everything's getting worse between them. And then you're like, oh no, he slept with his wife. What the hell is going to happen now? And like, they just don't talk about it. They just, no one, like, Ace don't give a shit.
Ace survives.
Ace is fine. Like,
Also,
Ace is pretty happy to be rid of her.
Ace survives.
Let's understand. Fair enough.
On your what if, all right, okay, this is a slight divergent, but we haven't spoken about this yet. Ace just survives. So they tried to kill him.
Yes.
And they fail because of the design of the car. All right, whatever. And then the ending is he just goes back to betting.
Making money for the mob bosses.
So look, okay, so I'm sure that happened, right? But for something that was so meticulously explained to me, for hours and hours, like to the point where I was like, stop fucking talking to me about what is happening right now. They get to the end, they try and kill him, and then he just goes, so I just went back to doing what I loved. And everyone's like, did they try and kill him again? Did he gamble for them?
Yeah.
Did he go back and he gambled for them?
Went
So they tried to kill him
for them.
They tried to kill him, but then thought, no, it's all right.
And in Scorsese's defense, this is what actually happened.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's okay.
But why didn't he explain?
Why did he not, in a 3-hour movie, there's like two very important things going on in the plot. There's the wife, and then there's the attempted murder of Ace, which is the opening fucking scene. Yeah. And neither of them are in the 3 hours of exposition that we sat
so
through.
Much exposition.
He didn't fucking tell us.
And at the end, he just goes, "And I was all right." By the end of it,
oh,
does it devalue the whole film? The fact that the ending is just
it was
all fine, and you're not going to
absolutely. At the end of a story, you want change, right? And you get to the end of the 3 fucking hours, and nothing is different.
Everyone's dead apart from me. The end.
and I'm still gambling.
And I casinoed my way to the top. Casino.
Oh, so I mean, look, this is why I made a point of going. This is what I liked about the film.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there were things I liked.
Yeah. Okay.
But the storytelling was atrocious, and specifically the ginger thing. I just am confident she could be a character that appears in 1 or 2 scenes just so we know he's got a wife and a kid.
Yeah, with a drug problem if you want.
Yes. So there's a bit of depth and it's interesting, but the story is about crime moving into Vegas. I don't need to know about a marriage that doesn't work. I don't care. It's not important. Unless Nikki and Ace come to a head because of that.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, at least there's a reason that she's there. So
yeah. It felt like they had. So the story, he has to go from what really happened. And what really happened is they almost came to a head in real life, Nikki and Ace, or their real life counterparts, but they obviously didn't.
Yes.
So Scorsese looked at that and thought, well, how can I make it seem even closer to it happening?
How can I make us look?
That's not quite interesting enough.
Let's get them even closer and make it even more exciting for it to all boil over.
Even more emotional.
And then we're going to take it off the heat. Just let it cool down.
But not for Sam, because he'll go back to gambling. Casino. So what happens in your change?
Oh, no, I didn't get that far. That was just a change.
It's a reasonably length film.
That's it. That's my change. I was like, my change is that you get rid of Ginger and you have a better film for it. You know, you literally, you could remove her from there is no storyline in the mob bit, the gang film that I'm there to watch. There is no bit that actually needs her there. So I didn't have to think very hard about this new movie, Fred, because I just say, cut the scenes out. The editor afterwards, record as many as you want, Marty. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the editor, just fucking get rid of them. Get rid of them all.
Save this one.
And there you go. You've got the movie. Great movie. Happy days. 90-minute belter.
90 minutes. Yeah. Fair enough. But what did you think?
What did you guys think? Were we a little bit harsh? Or
I think maybe a tiny bit.
No, we were not.
It was an all right film.
It was a good film. Fred gave it a 6.4.
I didn't like the film.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. We will keep posting more changes to movies, whether you like it or not.
You don't want
So
to see.
please feel free to go and check some more out if you want to mock us. Thanks so much. Right, we've got loads of time left. 5 minutes. That's loads.
All right, let's bash
Okay,
out.
do you want to know something cool, actually? You want to see something I've got?
Go on.
5 sentences that perfectly encapsulate as accurately as possible the impact of Casino.
Oh, wow.
Yes, with figures, I think. Yes, with figures. So, we're going to move on to our critical score section. We have 5 minutes left to rate this film in 7 more categories as objectively as possible. We need to just rattle through these. Almost always we just completely fail, but we're going to do our best anyway. So,
gut reaction scores this.
okay, so I need to add these on. So you get us started with plot. You just get the ball rolling.
All right, plot for Casino. I am going to say that the storytelling goes into this, and not a fan of that at all. The story, I mean, we discussed the inclusion of Ginger being superfluous to it for the point of making more tension, which led nowhere.
Mm-hmm. There was the non-linear car explosion,
bait and switch for no reason.
Yeah. Does the exposition come under plot, or does it come under something else?
Does it come under
Dialogue, maybe?
Let's give it plot and let's...
Because it might absolutely shaft it if we put that in dialogue. Okay, well, if we're putting that in plot, it's going to get absolutely fucked. Because that's
it's
like
a mob
several.
film, and it's from most of it's true to life. So for that reason, the actual bare bones of the story is good. I just think the realization of that I didn't like.
Yeah.
But it's not like really bad or anything.
There was some bad... I mean, I guess we're not
6 is
including...
mix.
Yeah. What are the positives, plot-wise?
The entrance of the mob into Vegas.
Just the whole concept.
Nikki and Ace as kind of what their motives. Some of the set pieces are really good. The mob violence scenes. But it's just the way that it was realized.
Okay.
I'm going to go 6 is mix. I think that's as mixed
Fine.
as it gets.
I'm pushing to a 6. I think 6 is bordering generous, but we'll move on. Character.
Characters, good.
Ace was cool.
Ace was a good character.
Nikki was
was a good character. Sharon Stone's Ginger.
Was a real person.
Then all of the others. So there's the 3, and then all of the others are just not developed.
Like, ow. Like, not even slightly.
Not enough.
One of them...
Considering how
One
long.
of them is Nikki's best friend, his closest advisor, and with extreme prejudice, beats him to death and buries him alive.
Right at
with
the end.
No explanation.
Now, there is a reason for that. We know. Look at his eyes. There's
He
real
hates
reason.
it.
He hates him.
That's got to come into
He's
character.
happy to kill him.
Because they've not explained that character arc at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Okay, so I would say that both Nikki and Sam are good, great characters. I'd say they're in 7 or 8. So Sharon Stone's character is, a drug addict.
6 or 7.
It's quite cool that she's like a...
At the start, first act, she's cool.
Yeah, she is quite cool. It's cool that she kind of plays people. That's
She
quite
has an
interesting.
act, like an arc, she changes throughout the film, which is kind of interesting.
The guy who James Woods is character, so her boyfriend, he's also another character that I forgot was in it. CD.
Okay, what are we going with?
7.
Okay.
What do you reckon? 8?
No.
You reckon 6 or mix? I'll say 7 then.
I think
7
in a
is-
3-hour film, to only come out with Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci being the memorable people in it is a
convinced
bit
me.
of a fuck up.
6 is mix.
Okay, dialogue.
Dialogue. What do you put for?
What the fuck was that exposition? That was an insult.
What we
sit
said,
through.
are we taking that as dialogue?
Oh, did we put it in plot?
We put it in plot.
Did we? Because if we put it in plot, then I need to move plot
plot
down.
needs to
We
be-
can't give plot a 6 of it. In addition to all the other shit, we are including 3 hours of exposition.
Okay, all right. So plot is a 5.
At fucking best. Like, completely no ending, no explanation whatsoever for why Ginger is in this plot at all, right? There's a whole bait and switch which is completely pointless.
The ending
and now
is cool.
we've got 3 hours of exposition as well in our plot category. That's like a 4 out of 10. That is a bad.
All right, yeah, go on. Whatever, 4.
4 or 5? I feel like.
It's 5. Yeah, 5. It is. There are good. There's enough good in it.
Okay.
All right. We'll
So
keep
then
plot
dialogue
character.
doesn't include.
No. So just the way
We're out of time. So
it's written.
go on. Just say what you're going to say. Sorry.
7.
You were going to make a point. Sorry.
I think the dialogue's pretty good. It's just there's so much of it. There's just
Okay.
a lot of it, and it was annoying that it was narrated. I liked things like the codes that they had.
And the narration wasn't in the dialogue. We've just
If
put it in
we
plot.
don't say narration is in the dialogue,
It was quite
then
good.
I think that it was just a lot of it. It was just, but the actual writing was
pretty
tight. It was good.
So what? 7?
7. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'd be happy with that. Oh, have I not? Oh, I'm on the wrong tab. That's why. 7. Performance. 7.
7.
Visuals.
Some good, interesting set pieces. Love the design of the Vegas.
Yep.
I reckon
Outfits. Costume.
outfit's good.
Cool.
8.
Sound. Sorry. Yes. For those listening, yes to 8.
Sound.
Good.
8 is great. 7 is good. 7.
7.
What do you think, 8?
I don't know.
7 then.
Okay, let me read out these 5 sentences. Right. What was the impact of Casino? Critical reception and realism. Directed by Martin Scorsese, Casino is praised for its authentic depiction of the chaos and corruption in the Las Vegas casino industry during the 70s and 80s, bolstered by its based on true story narrative. Box office and audience reception. The film grossed $116 million worldwide, showcasing its substantial pull despite its gritty, unglamorous portrayal of organized crime. Impact on Scorsese's legacy. Casino further solidified Scorsese's reputation as a master of crime storytelling, influencing a generation of filmmakers in the crime genre. Cultural depiction of characters like Sam Ace Rothstein and Nicky Santoro became iconic, representing archetypes of the clever hustler and the violent mob enforcer in American pop culture. Influence on media and television. The film's detail focus on the mechanics of casino operations and mob involvement influenced later works such as Ocean's 11 and TV series Las Vegas. Very quick point on that. I hadn't picked up on that, but I did quite like that I got to really see like the details of how an operation would work with the mob in the casino. It felt,
Yeah, I thought that was pretty
that
cool.
he felt very well, like it was very in depth.
So it was clearly an impactful film. I think as a Scorsese film, it is at best, well, maybe not at best. Let's say you've got S and A tier. I'd say it's a B tier Scorsese film.
Right. Yeah, as a Scorsese film.
As just a Scorsese film.
But if you because I reckon you'd agree, we have to remove as a Scorsese
I know, but I'm just
film.
saying, like, Scorsese's best a 10 out of 10 impact.
Yeah.
I don't think it approaches that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, of his, yeah.
But it's still a well-known for like a 90s, one of the maybe top 10 mob films in 90s cinema in terms of impact. You'd have thought it's in that range.
So what's like a 9?
I'd probably go 8.
8. Cool. I'm happy with that. So, the Mate Night podcast has now rated Casino 1995, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Robert De Niro, in 9 different categories and taken the average. We have rated it the following: Fred, 6.4 out of 10 for enjoyment. Jambo, 7.6 out of 10 for enjoyment. Plot, 5. Character, 6. Dialogue, 7. Performance, 7. Visuals, 8. Sound, 7. Impact, 8. Giving it a total score of 6.89 out of 10, which makes it the 25th greatest film of all time. It actually puts it about a fifth of the way up the list from the bottom.
Not great, but some belters on there.
Some big mistakes. Just some real big mistakes.
It won't be in like the 70th percentile.
Yeah.
Going forward, it will find its way up when we do more.
That's
bad
true.
films.
Yeah.
But to be honest, neither of us really cared for it.
I really didn't. Especially on the gut reaction score. One of the questions I asked was, would I watch this film again? And I was like, well, if someone makes me, maybe.
I'm never watching this again.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you so much
thanks
for listening. Thanks for listening, Rachel, Dave, anyone who's got to this point. You're